Welcome back to the Parenting Brief. I'm your host, Jessica Stewart-Gonzalez, an Arizona working mom and program director for the Maternal, Infant, and Early Childhood Home Visiting Program at the Arizona Department of Health Services. If you have questions about parenting, this podcast is for you. With the help of parenting pros and child development experts, we have tips and tricks to help you be the best parent you can be. Thank you for joining us for another episode of the Parenting Brief. One of the safest places we can be is in our homes. It's where our children sleep, learn, and grow. But house fires or wildfires can change everything. And if you have small children, quick decisions and a game plan can be the key to ensure your family can leave safely. That's why today we'll cover what you need to know about house fires, wildfires, and emergency situations when you have little ones in your home. Joining me today is Adam Rodriguez. He is the Emergency Medical Services for Children Program Manager at the Bureau of Emergency Medical Services and Trauma System at the Arizona Department of Health Services. As a former firefighter and paramedic, Adam is our go-to for all things safety. Before we even get into what to do if there is a fire, could you explain or talk a little bit about what the biggest causes of home fires are?
Something on the order of 20,000 fires a year are caused by children. And this is, when we say children, we're saying pediatrics, 17 and younger. And so the causes of why those fires might be started might vary wildly between, say, 5-year-olds who are playing with matches and, say, 15-year-olds who are deliberately doing something they're not supposed to be doing. And so there's endless reasons why fires get started. But there are patterns to a lot of those reasons. And we can use those patterns to help us predict things that are going to happen and hopefully to help prevent fires.
I know in my home, we have our kiddos cooking with us often in the kitchen. Can you talk about some of the challenges or risks in fires that may start in the kitchen area?
Absolutely. Before I forget it, with respect to kids in the kitchen, if everybody could just turn their handles of their pots and pans inward, over the stove or over the surface of your counter. What I mean is not hanging off the edge where a child of counter height or shorter can grab onto it. That's number one. Number two is there's a couple of different types of fires that can occur when you're cooking. Just to get right to it, we should talk about the best way to control all of them instead of getting into each one of them. The best way to control any type of fire in the home is an ABC fire extinguisher. And we'll probably keep talking about this throughout the episode. But an ABC fire extinguisher, you can buy them in any denomination of size. They make a little like handheld ones for your vehicles to the standard ones you see in schools and airports and these things. It depends on how much you want to spend as a homeowner or whoever you're buying this for. But you would absolutely want to look for the letters ABC. And the reason why I started out by saying this is because you can have a grease fire, which requires a different method. You can have a materials fire, a paper or wood or glass, something like that fire that will require a different type. And then type ABC takes care of all of them. And so with cooking with children, I think it's sort of along having some forethought about having a child in the kitchen and what kind of distractions are they going to introduce that I can mitigate now, that I can take care of now before I'm in the kitchen, or that I can think about, like turning your pot handles inwards, just as an example.
If a house fire does take place and families are needing to leave their home for safety, what should families do? What should they take? And when do they call 911?
There's a lot to talk about in between the discovery of a fire and leaving. But if you discovered that there is a fire that you can't control with your fire extinguishers, which you've hopefully purchased, there's some things that you need to have worked out prior to that. Again, there's some patterns to things, and we can have a lot of prevention. There's a lot of preventative value in identifying pre-incident things that we can do. And so what I mean by that is, depending on the age of your children, you would have to decide how it's best to teach them what we call egress or getting out of the house. And so you would want to make sure that you tell them that there's a difference between stop, drop, and roll. I was just watching TikTok earlier yesterday, I think, and I saw somebody that it was a comical TikTok. It wasn't a medical TikTok or anything, but they saw fire and stop, drop, and rolled. And they didn't realize that only works if you're actively on fire. And so to me, that represents a gap in people's understanding of what you need to do during a fire. And so if you're not actively on fire, stop, drop, and roll doesn't do anything for you. And so that's really what I mean. And that's, you would have to find a way to tell your child, this is where I want you to go, and this is where I want to meet you in the event that this happens. Unfortunately, about 10% of all fire fatalities are children 16 or younger. And the problem is, I'm glad you're asking. It's not the problem, but they seem to run away from the fire, but they run into an enclosed space, usually a closet, behind a door, or under the bed, because they're children and they're physically trying to just get away from it. And they don't have that sort of cognitive processing where we say, all right, let's get out of the house. Children will kind of scoot away, so to speak. And so it's a very grim thing to say, but we have a lot of information based on where we find these victims within the home that can help us understand what to do about it. And so definitely the takeaway is having a rally point or somewhere around the outside of your house that you can get a head count, so you can make sure all the members of your family are present. And so this is a situation, obviously, that you're leaving immediately. This is a situation where we're not talking about needing to leave the area in terms of like a wildland fire. So we have differences in the actions between these two, as I aforementioned.
So do you suggest running a fire drill at home, and how often?
Yeah, absolutely. Running a fire drill. Absolutely. I would run a fire drill as often as it took from as many locations in your house so that your child is familiar with egress from any position in the house. Not only that, but do they know what to do when they get out there? Do they know what to do? Because I think when you give a lot of these emergencies some expectation in terms of preparation, you take an awful lot of anxiety out of that situation, because rather than sort of organically reacting to it, you're sort of using a different part of your brain. And so to have a plan not only mitigates the incident itself, but also takes a step further and helps some cognitive help in remaining calm and these types of things. Excellent question, but I don't really have an answer for you. At least once. I mean, everybody should do at least once, but do them really often. And we should be telling families to sleep with their doors closed. I know that's very counterintuitive for a lot of families, because you can't really hear through these doors, and you'd like to be able to keep an ear on the house, so to speak, if you're sleeping. And a fire protective mechanism the doors are rated, standard construction home doors are rated to hold a fire back for a number of minutes. And when you sleep with doors open, you completely take that ability away. And so sleeping with doors closed prevents the spread of fire in your home dramatically, I'd add.
Oh, I did not know that.
Interesting.
Yeah. So in Arizona, we know that house fires and wildfires are our two biggest concerns. So wildfires are always a concern, and especially in many of our areas where we have national forests and parks and outdoor spaces, it comes with that wildfire risk. And we have many people who live in communities that surround these areas. Can you briefly talk about how people find information about wildfires in their area and how to get information about evacuation?
Arizona absolutely utilizes a readiness system called Ready, Set, Go. And it's very useful, and it's state broadcast information that says you should have your stuff ready, you should be ready to go, and finally get out of the house. And so you should pay very close attention to those Ready, Set, Go alerts when you'll get them if the fire is proximal to your house. Of course, you're not getting these alerts if you're not anywhere near a fire is. So you'll start to discover, if you're near a fire, that these alerts will begin to come up to you. And that's what you need to do. It's actually a very good system. And the things you should take with if you need to leave the home, and in the case of a wildland fire, you may have some warning. And definitely, even if there isn't any active fires right now, you still want to take time to think about what you would want to leave the house with, especially if you have a child with you, and especially if for any reason you have a special needs child or any child that needs any kind of medical equipment with batteries and supplies. And so you have to have that kind of stuff, have applied some forethought to it. And this is obviously in addition to food and water and clothes and those things, but medications they may need, equipment, any medical equipment, and then any soothing items that you can get that that they enjoy. And then leaving the house, since this is a situation where you would likely be leaving the area rather than just gathering on foot outside of the house fire, the wildland fire requires that you likely leave the area. So you definitely want two things in place if you're going to leave. You need to be able to leave. So that's a car with at least a half a tank of gas. And then you got to have somewhere to go. The idea of expecting things during an emergency is much more comforting than not. And so on your way out, if you already know where you're going and you already have perhaps, money set aside, relatives, if it's not a motel or something like that. It all adds to being prepared for all these things. And hopefully the fire doesn't make it to your house. There's a lot you can do to the surroundings of your home to help make your home a defendable space. There's a lot you can do. You can cut a lot of brush away. You can essentially give your home a large gap between it and vegetation to help fend off some flames. But I digress. We're talking about leaving the home. And so make sure you have the equipment that's special to your child, gas to get where you're going, and a pre-planned place to go so that you can be found, so that perhaps some agency doesn't think that you're missing.
Well, thank you so much for lending your expert advice to us today, Adam.
Thank you. I very much appreciate y'all having me.
If you want to learn more about the topics covered here today, take a look at the episode show notes. While you're there, don't forget to give us a follow on your favorite podcast app. And as always, make sure to pass the episode along to a caregiver, friend, or family member. Until next time, this is Jessica. You've got this.